gratitude is an active choice. It is one that I can only make if I am also doing my grief work. Because if I don't, then I am gaslighting myself and other people. Then I am leaning into what could feel like toxic positivity. I have to also be available to my grief and to say, like we were saying, maybe I did have a crappy day. Can I honor how hard it was?
Welcome to Deconstructing Therapy, transforming therapy and the therapists who lead it. Let's deep dive into conversations, reshaping therapy into a powerful tool for healing, liberation, and systemic change. Join us as we challenge the status quo, reimagine care, and celebrate therapists breaking barriers. Let's transform therapy together. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Bethanie Mangigian. Bethanie is a trauma-informed psychotherapist with a private practice in New Orleans. She's a certified EMDR therapist, emotionally focused couples therapist, and consultant in training. Beyond her therapy work, Bethanie is a talented collage artist whose work has been exhibited through the Collage Institute and Second Story Gallery in New Orleans. With a deep commitment to cultivating authenticity, accountability, and joy, Bethanie brings warmth and wisdom to the healing spaces she creates. I'm excited about this conversation. I know we have so many of these conversations. We have a peer group together.
You know that I'm all about therapists should be doing improv. We all need to be finding different ways to be in dialogue together because we're talking about such big, heavy things so much that I just appreciate an opportunity like this to collaborate with you because I know I'm going to leave having learned something and I'm going to be thinking about what we do in a new way.
Yeah, that's how I feel about all our conversations. I'm like, it gets my gears running. I'm like, oh, wait, let me shift and change. And you're right. I think it's so important for therapists to be in dialogue together and not just be in isolation in that room with the clients because there's so many different things that come up with what we're holding with them and what's coming up from within us. And a lot of the conversations me and you have had is about the us part in the therapy room. You know, a lot of people don't really understand the impact of how much you're bringing of yourself in there. You know, we're not these blank slates or these perfect little experts that are just sitting in the room.
Right.
There's a richness and a complexity to what we're bringing in the room. And as you and me have talked about, we've had a lot of life kind of hit us these last couple of years and how that's shaped and evolved the way we have walked in personal spaces and therapeutic spaces. And so that's kind of what I wanted to focus on with you today. You're comfortable talking about that?
Absolutely. And just as you were speaking, Alefyah, the thing that was coming up for me was the importance of authenticity, right? And that cornerstone of the therapeutic relationship is feeling that we are genuine and that clients get to trust the safety of the space, in part because they know we are going to be fully present. And part of what being fully present means is being really integrated and able to know ourselves deeply and then share not from that kind of personal knowing, but sharing more from the place of groundedness in why am I here? What am I doing here? How am I present, available, organized and oriented enough to actually be open and curious for my client? And I think so dramatically differently than I did when I even first came into this work 8.5 years ago about self-care and really deeply caring, nurturing, loving myself, because I think that getting in touch with myself, my creative self, is what has fed my ability to be available emotionally and to be present for my clients.
You're right. Its authenticity is so important. You can feel it. You can feel it in a room with anybody of how authentic they are. And I like that you're making that distinction. It doesn't mean that you're just fully open and vulnerable and putting all your stuff out there. It is, are you showing up as a fully integrated self in the room?
Well, and I think right, what do we mean by integrated? Because the other thing that I think about all the time, and I was on a walk this morning with a therapist friend, and one of the things I was saying to her that I've learned is there is no arrival. What does it mean to live as if we know there's no arrival? And when I say that, what I mean is there's no end to the to-do list. There's no end to the demands that a capitalistic society has of us, that a perfectionistic society has of us, to say like more, 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 more at the expense of ever being able to self-attune and check in with yourself. And so we're often making decisions from nervous system activation, from fear, from, oh God, well, oh, and we can make ourselves so busy that we're so sick and we're unable to actually channel center. We're not able to say, okay, hang on a minute. If I accept that there's no done, that I'll never be done, that there's never a sense of completion to my 8 million tasks, like literally I am now collaging the outlet covers in my house because I'm that maximalist, right? So there will never be done for me, but in a way, that's part of where my artist practice comes in, is saying it's a feeling. It's, am I actually checking in with, like, it feels complete, and complete feels different than done. It feels whole. That somehow feels like I've come to peace with it. And that's been an internal process versus an external, well, this is the checklist and this is what we've decided means done. And so if I live that way, if I know that, then I give myself permission to rest when I need to. I give myself permission to say, okay, yeah, my floors are kind of dusty right now, but I'd rather go and take a walk with a friend for now.
So it makes a lot of sense. And it's really changing me a little bit in the way you're saying it. There's no done, there is complete. And I say this all the time, have all these conversations all the time about capitalism and anti-colonialism, and we got to get rid of the grind culture. But when you say there is no done, there's no end, there's no done. I get it. I hear it. I say that to other people, but that's still, it's really hard for me still to fully sit with that reality of like, it's not going to be done. And even give myself a full-fledged permission to relax until it's done. Because I was even grown up with that. And I think that's part of that capitalist mentality, right? When the checklist is done, then you earn the rest. Then you earn
100%. You can't watch TV till your homework's done, Alefyah.
Yes. Yes.
Don't you know that?
So the feeling of, no, I can do this, like that still feels uncomfortable to me. It's something I have to challenge. It's something that my nervous system's not going to be fully able to take in, but it is a big deal of like, no, you can go take that walk.
Yes. And knowing what I have been trying to marry for myself is, and I'm not there yet. This is why there's no done. It's not like I know how to do this perfectly. There's no done. And how I approach it has to be different based on what my capacity is that day when I wake up, what's happening in the world around me and how heavy I feel around them, what internal resources I have. But what I'm learning and trying to learn to balance is self-compassion plus self-discipline. I have often been too far on one end of the spectrum, right? Where I think actually probably like the first 25 years of my life were way more self-discipline, very little self-compassion. And part of that was because of these external drivers of like, do really well in school, get A's, do 8 million extracurricular activities, then get into a really prestigious college, be really successful there, earn a high GPA, get a good job. And I just kept trying to climb the ladder. And I think it took me a couple jobs out of school to realize that, oh, like I've been really reliant on those external markers of success to feel okay at the expense of really, again, being able to connect to what brings me joy, what actually fills my cup, doesn't just deplete me. And I think it took becoming a social worker. And a lot of times, you come into social work school and instead of calling it research, they call it me search, because you end up through just trying to learn how to do this, how to embody this profession, having to really deeply learn about yourself and deprogram all these old ways of being. So now I've gotten a lot better at self-compassion.
I do like that you're saying that, because I think a lot of people do resonate, and there's a lot of talk now, but be compassionate, do the self-care. And I have a lot of mixed thoughts about how self-care is talked about out right now.
Yes. When I say self-care, it's important for me to define, it is really more self-nurturance, self-tending. And it's not, oh my God, self-care. I bought a bath bomb. Self-care actually for me often is driven through community engagement and relationships. So one version of self-care for me is that I have people over to my house every week to watch Jane Austen/Jane Austen adjacent canon. And I make a pound of pasta sorry to my gluten-free peeps. Sometimes I'm accommodating, but everyone comes over and we eat and we watch something and experience it together. And it's way to lower the expectation of hosting because I care deeply about hospitality, but this has been a practice for me. And if I really just want to bring people together, I got to make it easier on myself. I can't be a perfectionist about it. So it's morphed into this really beautiful check-in every week. And then I have my one-off, get-togethers with friends that are deeper dives, but just being together, having people in my home, being able to like wrap friends literally in a blanket, wrap myself in a blanket with them and have a cup of tea and watch something that is inspired by weird 1800s. Like it's all so bizarre and voyeuristic, but we're having a great time while we're doing it.
Yeah, but it's connection too. It's not like just sitting in your room and having bubble bath. And I like that you're saying I have to manage my own capacity with that too. Because even in the leisure activity, I got to check the discipline. Am I overextending and overfunctioning? Because I'm so wired to do that.
You know this about me, but I'll share it here. I have lived a little bit by the wisdom of a former mentor who basically said, if you can't find it, found it. That was empowering for me for many years to say, yeah, okay, I can't find this thing I need. So then let me take my own agency and build it. Maybe it's also that I grew up and my dad loved the movie Field of Dreams, and the mantra there is, if you build it, they will come, right? This was like from 5 years old. That's like in the back of my head. If you build it, they will come. So I believe in that ability to manifest and to build. And that has been so reinforced for me in so many spaces in a positive way, but also in ways that I think can tap into the overfunctioning and create so much pressure of, oh no, it doesn't exist. I have to do it. No.
It kind of robs you a bit of people coming for you and creating it for you.
Yes. So there's been a challenge for me, and something I'm working on is allowing it to come to me, wait for the invitation. I can put it out there, but there's a difference between pursuing your goals, going after something, and applying force. There's something about it of, okay, I want to do this. Let me maybe be curious. Let me explore. Let me look at, let's see. But there's also a different energy. And I have felt it within myself at times. And I feel it even sometimes as a therapist, if I'm a little bit in front of the client, right? When I'm not right there with them, you feel the quality of the energy shift of, if I am forcing it, if there's any degree of force, I am so much more likely to do harm to myself, to a client, to wherever I am trying to apply that force. It doesn't tend to work.
You're not going to know moment to moment what's the right balance, right? We're always going to be figuring it out. But I think when you can be intentional with the slowness and connecting to yourself,
yes,
then those answers start coming to you better moment by
Thank you.
moment, right?
I needed that cue word from you, because I have been thinking a lot about what is the word that I would hope people would use to describe me, or what is the word that I want to be embodying and known for, and intentional is one of them. What you said just now really resonates of, it is actually through being thoughtful and intentional, and not with the quality of like being dogmatic about a schedule and like, this must look like this every day. I must carve this time out for myself. Blah, 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 blah. Again, just having some ease around it, but still being intentional. Our best intentions. Sometimes the intention is there and the outcome might not be. But if I'm trying to build that space, if I'm being thoughtful about how I'm in relationship with myself, how I have time for me, also how I have time for community, how I have time to give back, how I have time to put in. If I am being intentional, then I think I can be balanced. I think I can be caring.
And I don't think you have to ask yourself so much of, am I being balanced in this decision, in this moment, in this, when you have that space and that connection, the deeper your connection is with yourself, and the more you give yourself that space for that slowness to connect more and more with yourself, then those other decisions just start coming out organically.
100%. Yes, absolutely. I think it's slowing down. And I think once you start to slow down, you realize, wait, I need to slow down a lot more. And I need to just name like the extreme amount of privilege that I have to be able to do this. I have a ton of privilege that enables me to do this. The fact that I have had access to such incredible educational institutions, that I was able to work in a setting that helped me get my clinical license so I could have a private practice, I could not be where I am without that.
I'm really, really happy you're bringing that up, that privilege. I remember having another conversation with somebody on this podcast, and we were just talking about depression and how we were both really shifted and grew from our depression, and we've allowed ourselves to kind of just break down. And it was a great conversation. But afterwards, when I hung up, I thought, this is a privilege. It's crazy to say, but it was a privilege that I could be depressed, that I could let myself slow down and even take the space to like reemerge from that. And a lot of people don't have the privilege for slowness in this world, and that it does weigh heavy on me. How can we speak to some of that though? Like there are people that are working 2 jobs, a single mom, like they do not have all this stuff that we talk about so often in the therapy world of like, oh yeah, just slow down or take them up that do like healthcare days. Like, what if you can't?
That is an important question. And I think that, I guess one thing I want to say in response to this notion of the privilege that we do hold, what I think about that or how I try to kind of tolerate the distress around knowing that I have something that I didn't earn that others don't have access to is it's like, when are we using our privilege to, speak truth to power, or when are we using our privilege to try to actually do good in the world? Like, how does that actually give me internal resources through emotional regulation that I get from moving more slowly that I can then pour into other people? How is it that actually like I can be the most authentic, genuine, and present therapist that I can be for individuals and or kind of get to groups? How can I do that because I have this? And recognizing that actually it is my privilege that gives me the opportunity to do this work in a way that I think allows it to be more successful, right? I guess that's part one of like, how have I been trying to operate with that privilege? Is like, where can I just give more? Where can I give to people and places that don't have what I have? And how do I use myself, again, talk about this self of therapist, how does the self of the therapist, the resource, how do I just make myself an abundant resource?
It's strange being a therapist because it's like we have the privilege to do that because of our schedules and we make our own, but we also don't have the privilege to not do it. We can't really phone it in when we go in. Like we have to, if our stuff is getting messy, like we have to check it. We have to do this stuff or it starts eroding our profession.
We don't often, I think, like collectively or societally understand the way, and I also believe there are people within our profession who don't hold this sacred, maybe to the degree that they need to, right? Or maybe they are unable to as well. That may not be the right way of saying it, but I think if we actually really want to be the resource we aim to be for clients, it's holding this as a sacred responsibility.
Like our psyche is our instrument. Like we have to keep taking care of it and fine tuning it. And it's like singers with their voice, like they don't have an option. That's their tool. Like
back to what you're saying though about what do you say to the person who's working 2 jobs? What do you say to someone who doesn't have this privilege? Something that I think about is the work of Thich Nhat Hanh, and one of the things he talks about in reconciliation about healing the inner child is there's a meditation around how do you find rest in every moment? What would it mean to bring rest to the moment that you're in? There is a way in which mindfulness practice is a form of self-tending, self-nurturance that is accessible to everyone. Any system of power that tries to tell us it's not, you can't slow down. And you can't say that to someone who has to do this and that they can't slow down. That's not true. Everyone can access mindfulness. Anyone can take a moment and connect to center with support, with building the habit, right? Accessing the resources to allow them to do it. But I think that there is a narrative that I want to destroy around like, well, you can only access balance or emotional regulation if you have this type of privilege or da, da, da. It can be so, and also,
can you distill that down for me? Because often this is talked about in such a complicated way. And then in therapy, and you got to do this to get rest and this fancy way of meditating or this yoga class, or the single mom working 2 jobs, gets up and then works her ass off until she puts her kids to bed and then passes out. How can she, in a simple way, like get that slowness and that breath?
For sure. I can't prescribe something because everyone is different. What would feel resonant to everyone is different. But what I would say is in that moment that maybe you're waiting to pick your kid up, or even you're in the grocery line, wherever it is, can you take the moment to just scan your body? Can you take the moment to say, can I shrug my shoulders if I feel tense here? Rub my own arm and let myself know I'm doing my very best right now. Can I say at the end of the day, after I put the kids to bed, I did it. I did it another day. Is there an opportunity before I pass out for even all that needs to be is a minute? It could be 30 seconds of just honoring one thing I did that I feel proud of that day. Last week, I was at a workshop that my friend Shonda Domingo Brown led here in New Orleans. And one of the activities was we created gratitude jars, just old glass jars, and you could decorate it with whatever scraps of paper or whatever you have around your house, but something that just holds a place of gratitude. And so I cut a bunch of paper. I have little slips. And at the end of the day, every night, something that I am trying to do is write something from that day that I can experience some gratitude around. And I think we make this sometimes harder than it needs to be. It doesn't need to be something big. Because maybe you are struggling, maybe you're depressed, maybe you're anxious, maybe you're like, well, today kind of sucked. This wasn't such a good day. And how the heck am I supposed to feel grateful when there's all this horrific stuff happening in the world? Can I break it down to just being grateful for my breath? Because that has the power to connect us to our humanity and the humanity of others if we can exercise active gratitude.
I like the way you're saying this about how it's just these little moments. It's just these, we don't need to make it so big. It is the same concepts of this gratitude or self-compassion, or that can we just steal a minute, 30 seconds here and there and put them in.
Reclaim it.
Yeah. When I'm waiting, can I take a breath instead of reach for my phone? Like,
I'll say this, there were some times in my life where if someone was like, well, but what could you be grateful for? I would have just said F you, right? I would have said F you to anyone who was trying to tell me, well, could you be grateful for? I'd be like, shut up. Shut up right now.
I do get tricky with that too, because I hate toxic positivity.
I do too.
Hate people who don't have the capacity for no, I just want to be sad, right? I have a right to feel upset. My life sucks.
Yes. So this is the other aspect, and this comes from Francis Weller's work, right? Whose book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow, has been one of the most meaningful books I've ever read in my life. He talks about like the twin sisters of grief and gratitude. So this is the other side of it that I didn't want to neglect, which is gratitude is an active choice. It is one that I can only make if I am also doing my grief work. Because if I don't, then I am gaslighting myself and other people. Then I am leaning into what could feel like toxic positivity. I have to also be available to my grief and to say, like we were saying, maybe I did have a crappy day. Can I honor how hard it was? It was so hard. I want to go and be in my shower and just let hot water wash it off of me. I'm so sad about what today was, right? Like I have to be able to do that too. If I want to then be like, and I'm grateful it's over. I'm glad it's done. Today is done. And I can be grateful for that while I also allow myself the permission to grieve. They go hand in hand. We don't get one without the other. And I think what happens a lot of the time and what feels so toxic about the positivity is when it is forcing, again, back to this idea of force, when we are forcing people to be at gratitude when we have not honored their grief. And there are very good reasons to be in absolute despair.
And you can feel it when it's that toxicity because you know that it's coming from a discomfort of the grief. It's not coming from real gratitude and real appreciation. And real appreciation and gratitude comes from when you can see how big the grief is. You know, you don't understand how beautiful the sun is when it's shining if you haven't really seen the rain.
Yes. And I think that truthfully, I don't think that I could embody that or understand that as deeply as I do now until I had multiple profound losses in my life. And I remember going to a therapist. She kept trying to make me watch this one movie. Like, have you seen the movie Collateral Beauty? And I was like, lady, you've recommended this 5 sessions in a row. I'm like, can you come up with another tool, another resource for me? But I really think you really need to watch this. I think it would really help you. I was like, I am grieving. I am having like PTSD and trauma responses to this thing I just went through. And you keep trying to force this idea of this movie on me. I will say, like, spoiler alert, I watched that movie many months later to just be like, okay, what the heck was she talking about? I have to say, it was not my favorite.
What message did you get from her that she kept recommending it?
I can't be with you right now. I don't like that you feel so sad. I don't like that you feel so bad. I want you to feel better. I want you to remember all the good things in your life. She was right, but her timing was wrong. And so it was wrong. It invalidated my grief. It made me feel like I was bad, that something was wrong with me, that I was so angry at her even for recommending that I was like, let me be sad. Witness me, like be with
Yeah,
me.
I've been on both ends of that story, and I can understand. Yes, it can really, really resonate with that. But that's why you feel uncomfortable when people give you that advice or fix it or when it's really saying I can't be with whatever you're showing up with right now. It's too much for me.
Yes, you're too much. You're too much for bringing this. And hey, I'm not proud of this because I think probably there were times where early in my therapy career of being coached around, CBT and more behavioral interventions, I was like, well, have you tried this or could you just do that and da 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 da? And I would be in like Bethany fix it mode as the therapist. And it was like, wait. No, nothing is broken. Things just need to be held. We all need to be held and witnessed gently.
We could do that for ourselves. Like if we're pushing ourselves all the time past our own grief and discomfort, we're going to do that to other people as well.
We will. I've done that. I've been too far in front. And again, I'll say this about that experience I had in therapy. I think that her message was correct. I needed the other sister, the sister of grief to be able to sit down on the couch with me and to be allowed to companion that.
Misattunement happens all the time. When we do it all the time. That's human relationship.
And that's okay. Repair is kind of like the name of the game, right? I think if again, back to perfectionism, first of all, it just can't happen. And second of all, I just had a conflict with a friend over the weekend and it was just a minor misunderstanding, but it brought up a lot in our attachment bond. And it was one of the most helpful and productive conversations I've had in a friendship. And I feel so much safer and closer to this friend now because we developed a repair process.
But you can do that. There's so much safety in knowing it. Rupture is going to happen, and it's going to happen between a client and a therapist. So I'm saying this also because you're saying the story of the therapist. We're not saying that to say that therapist is a horrible person. This is going to happen in every single relationship, and to be able to go back in and say, hey, I need you to be with me, and for her to realize, hey, I wasn't there with you. If there was some version of that can happen, there can be a lot of strength in there.
And it is also, I think, the difference of engaging countertransference actively and consciously versus unconsciously, right? Because I'm pretty sure that, what happened in that experience was that it brought something up for this person. And then that came right back and I felt it, but the bond actually wasn't safe enough for the countertransference to be made really explicit. If we can do that, I often say with clients, like, there's nothing in here that is taboo. Whatever it is that comes up is grist for the mill. And so I never want you to hesitate. If I say something or do something and you're like, that really triggered me, or I felt really judged by that, I'm like, whoa, tell me about that. I want to understand that. Let's go. Because if we understand our relationship is a template, is a vehicle, is not about us, and I don't make it about me and my stuff, then I can just be present for, oh, I did something because I'm a human. I messed up. I'm going to do that. But here's what's different, hopefully, is that in here, you get to trust that if you bring that to me, I want to hear you. I want to figure it out with you and I want to restore safety.
And a lot of people have not had that opportunity in their lives before. Of like, wait, I can tell somebody when I feel dropped and they're actually going to take it in and we have an opportunity for repair. And there's so much strength in that. That sometimes my relationships with my clients become so much more bonded and secure after we've had a rupture.
I bet. I can imagine. I think you're amazing at that, Alefyah. I can feel that because I feel like I've felt that from you before too. And you're so good at kind of just making the space, the radical permission, and it's humility too, to be able to say, you know what, that was on me.
That's just natural. That's normal. So no, I appreciate you bringing this up. And there's a lot of complexities to it. I've bring up rough and repair a lot on this podcast, and so I like talking about it. It's so crucial. I did want to integrate part of this into what you're talking about with grief, because we've been kind of touching on it, and I know that's such a huge part of your journey. Can you kind of expand more on how that has really shifted you, your practice, the way you move about in the world personally?
Big topic. Again, I think there are just some experiences that you don't get until you go through it. And so having, experienced a few profound losses in my life in the last couple of years, and being a caregiver for a family member with a terminal illness, just opened me up to parts of myself that I just didn't have access to before. And if I had to try to explain it, I think I was able to feel more. I don't think I felt all of my feelings at the full range of volume. Like, I think in the aftermath of great sorrow and grief, I feel things way more intensely than I ever did before. I feel my sadness more. I felt it physically. And so part of what happened is that, like, grief changed my relationship to my body. Like, my body type changed. Like, many things happened. It also meant I had to build a new relationship with movement, because as my body became heavier and weighed down with the grief, my body was manifesting that. And so then I had to really intentionally cultivate movement. The relationship to my body changed. The relationship to my emotions changed. The relationship to my community and to people, and what does it mean to be partnered in grief and companioned in grief? I understood that completely differently, right? Whether it was, who are the people that shy away, who back away from you, all those secondary losses that you go through, who are the people who show up, who are the people that emerge, the bonds that you forge with people when they see you at your absolute worst and stick around. It's profound.
I would change so many things. I want to kind of most piece each one of these apart because they all so important. But the one that stood out for me the biggest right now is just my every single emotion, the volume got turned up. That just gave such imagery to me of almost just being so radically present with yourself and the emotions that you're feeling. Everything.
I could not be.
You understand and you appreciate how fleeting things are. So I can understand how just everything, you really feel the intenseness of it.
There's a gift. Death is reordering, in the sense that I was out somewhere, soon after one of these losses, and listening to someone complain about something really inconsequential. And I just remember sitting there. I felt two things simultaneously. I felt kind of enraged, because grief can make you feel so isolated from the world around you. I think many people talk about this, but that experience of the world is moving on, life is moving on, people are doing great, and you're there and you feel alone and destroyed. How am I supposed to kind of operate? And then you hear someone like spouting off about something that you're like, do you even know what it's like to lose the person you love the most? And that's where you're like, oh, okay, Dark Bethany has arrived. So I felt enraged a lot of the time in early acute grief. But the other thing I felt, and I even couldn't quite touch it, but I feel it more now, I felt released. I felt like, oh, I don't have to worry about stuff like this anymore. It doesn't matter. It's not important.
That's such a strange dichotomy, because on one hand, you're like, I'm just paralyzed. I'm standing still and everything else is just going by. And then on the other end, it's like, no, wait, I have this like crisp clarity on what's important and what's not that other people don't really see yet.
Your world gets smaller in grief. There is a cocooning. In that cocoon, things are clearer. It's much smaller, so you can see it all. You can kind of feel the walls around you in a new way. And then when you start to come out of it, if you are lucky, and I think if you, maybe it's not just luck, but like if you choose it, I think you can hold that. It can be a reminder, fight for what matters to you. Put your focus onto the relationships and in the spaces that really give to you. Go with that. Follow that. Life is too short. Tomorrow is not promised. It's so corny. It's so corny to say, like, live every day as if it's your last, right? Like, I feel silly
we don't realize how short life is and how fleeting it is, especially in this country, right? I mean,
And I think that if I can live that way and I try it that, if I care to try it that, it actually feels like a way of honoring the fact that other people don't have access to that. Maybe I'm hearing about some atrocity, some horrific tragedy, and someone's life was cut short completely unjustly. And sometimes I think about what would they want from me? And maybe it is like, hey, take action on this one social issue or do something like sometimes it's that I think they would want to know that their story was being held, that their story was told. They would want to know that I sat with and grieved their loss. They would also want me to live. They would need to live the life they don't get to live. And I feel that way about my loved ones who've gone on. And that has been another reorienting way of thinking about like how to give to myself and how I can actually get out of this guilt that people want me to feel about actually truly loving myself and doing what I need to do to be good for me and to be good for others. And it's that my ancestors, I am going to get to live out all the dreams that they didn't.
It's exactly what you're saying in the beginning of this podcast. If you have to have the grief and the appreciation together, you have to. They go hand in hand. And because you can sit with the grief so deeply, it's what makes you see the joy and the appreciation so deeply too.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Alefyah. I have my days. It's always like, oh man, I see a movie, that reminds me of something, or I think of, family gathering or an event or this or that. And I think about who's not there. And I think about, woe is me. Like, I don't have these people. They're not here. People are so lucky they have this and that. I go there. Don't worry. Like I can spiral into my self-pitying stuff, but what I do, it is a practice. It is a habit. It is not, and I'm working on it, is trying to remember in all those moments that comes up, is like revisiting. That's not true. They're here. Like I'm not alone. They're here. I cannot see them. I can cultivate a practice of feeling them.
Do you feel like this practice of you slowing down and giving yourself Mondays and kind of getting closer to you, do you get closer to them too?
Absolutely. Because I think that with any slowing down process, we're making room to receive. And I don't remember where this study came from, but it was something about we recycle 80 to 90% of our thoughts every day. I was like, I want to know about the next study that says when the 10 or the 20% becomes more possible, or who are the people that have 30%. And I just started thinking about when I am not in client, like do the thing, run the, like when I am not in the rat race or I'm not in just the rushing, how boredom, stillness, downtime is creating opportunity for imagination, daydreaming. I think Trisha Hershey, who wrote the Rest is Resistance and is like the Nap Ministry bishop, this idea of rest as resistance and rest as the portal for daydreaming, for innovation, for imagination, for new ideas that we can't get there if we're full. So we have to empty out a little bit. We have to be a little empty in order to receive. It's not my work. That's hers.
Yeah. But it is beautiful the way you are really embodying it. You really are painting such a great picture of how you're really stepping into that and how grief enhanced your ability to do that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the body work? Because you're just like, oh, well, my body changed, so I had to move. But how did you get there? How did you get to, oh, wait, my body is shifting? Like even in the midst of grief, to have that awareness that it is, I'm shifting, I'm holding in a different way. And now with that shift, I know I have to move.
I am still in a process of dismantling these lies I have, learned about my body and what my body should look like and how it should be. But boy, oh boy, will I say that I had gone for my annual doctor's visit, and it was the first time I had been in a hospital since this death in my life. And I was overwhelmed. I was not having a panic attack, but I was close. And then you get into the office, they call your name back, and they're like, okay, take off your jacket, step on the scale. And I looked at it and I was like, no, that can't be right. And I remember them telling me in that appointment, like, oh, like your weight has changed X amount. And the first reaction I had, the first feeling was just so much shame because, with weight, I was taught more is always bad. It's always worse. Like you've let yourself go. The best thing, my friend said to me She's like, well, did you imagine that maybe your body had to actually make space or become bigger to expand in order to hold everything that you were asking it to hold? That helped me start to change my relationship to my body. But I do think that what really kind of prompted that journey of trying to like know and love my body was just feeling like the grief was stuck, feeling the stagnancy. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of rage that needed movement. And so early in grief, I was taking grief walk, and I would invite a friend and they'd be like, you're walking really fast. Like I looked a little cuckoo out there. I was just like the Energizer Bunny. And
Felt good. Did it feel like you were releasing it as
I
you were
did.
walking?
I needed to. I needed to. And it came to the point really, okay, walking's not enough. I needed to dance it out. And so I called my friend who I had been in a incubator program with. I had taken her hip hop classes on the Greenway. She was shifting her work to be more ancestrally focused and more kind of dance as medicine focused. And so we started doing that. We started getting together every week and building movements. I would find a song that I was obsessed with. And that's where I was earlier today. I still do this, 2.5 years later. So it's become so core. It's become so important to me to have this outlet. And I have other outlets too. I mean, yoga has been incredibly healing for me, just like brisk walks. And I'm now starting to feel brave enough that I think I'm going to do a group dance class. I want to get to a group dance class, but just having a friend to move my body with and to do it together and to build it together. When I finish that hour, I am lighter. Every time I am lighter, and there is an opportunity to feel pride in caring for myself. Another friend who basically I was asking her, I was like, how did you change, your relationship to your body? How did you kind of start to get out of this mentality of like, well, I have to exercise to lose weight or to be this certain whatever. And she was like, I had to start remembering that it's a privilege that I get to take care of my body this way. I get to do this. I deserve this. My body deserves this of me. If I am able to do this, I deserve this. I deserve to give my body what I need, whether that's changing the way that I eat, changing the way that I move, making sure I actually hydrate. Some of these like basic human things that certainly I can forget to do because I live so much here and here out focused on other people. So it takes intentionality to actually focus on myself.
There's so many layers to like getting more embodied, getting to understand your feelings better. Yeah, I love how you're painting that picture of how grief really radically shifted in certain ways. You just hit a roadblock. Like
I
my
had
body
to.
got bigger because I was carrying too much, and I had to figure out how to release it. How did this play out in your work?
What a question. It was complicated because on the one hand, my clients at the time knew I had to take some time off, not to grieve, not to recover, just because of the business of death and because of what it involves. I, at the time, didn't have the ability to not come back to work right away. And it's something I still feel some shame about because I'm like, was that ethical of me to go back to work right after? And should I have done? But then I also think about, well, actually think about those sessions, think about that first month back. And I was like, I was tapped into something that was powerful. And in some ways, I think my practice saved me because it helped me get out of my pain. It helped me to hear and sit in and be with the stories of other people and in a completely new way. I mean, everything was colored in this new color I hadn't ever seen before. And it was this one where I realized again, because it was what I knew I needed, because I had never been in such intense psychological pain before. Never before, really. And so it was through that I really started to try to honor the nature of pain differently. I think, initially coming into therapy and into the relationship of being the therapist, I often felt, well, they're here for a reason. They need help. They want to get out of this experience that they're having. And how do I do that with them? And
You were able to sit in with them in a different way. Kind of like what you're talking about with your therapist wasn't really able to be there with you. You were able to give that gift to so many people, I'm sure.
I think it made me more human. I think it just, I don't know, there's it weirdly like a little bit of a looseness. I don't have a better word for it right now, but there was a little bit of just a give because something gave in me, something kind of broke in me, right? So I was just like, you know what? Okay. I've always been someone, like, I've always been a therapist to incorporate humor. I think it's really important that we honor that, like, some stuff is so bananagrams that it, like, is hilarious. Like, sometimes it's just, like, there are just human moments in therapy, right? So I've always wanted to bring that in and always tried to bring that in. But I do think something changed after grief. I just also started to see the absurdity of life differently. I don't know if I have better language for it, but I will say this. I think grief has made me a much better therapist. I think it really has made me a much better therapist because also part of it was like really this experience of having to drag myself out of it and trying to like more deeply understand the experience of like how do you move out of deep stuckness, and how do you help people feel more seen in places that feel really alone and places that feel really under nurtured.
Wow, it's so many gifts that you're naming. It's just, yeah, being able to slow down, being able to sit in these heavier places that maybe other people have never experienced, so they can't really fully touch on to really be in it with somebody else. And then seeing the joy and the grief in a different way, the appreciation in a different way, and getting into your body. Because, as therapists, of course, and we learn about this and we got to get in our body but when you really had to do it the way you're saying you had to do it, my body changed completely. Like I had to release it to move forward. That's a whole other thing.
It really is, and it's interesting because I've been, as we've been talking, thinking about it more for individual clients, but I recently, in working with a couple, they are going through a loss, and I again am like grateful for not just the professional learning because when I had these losses, I read every freaking book that there is about grief. Like I was like, well, we're gonna study it, we're gonna understand it, just trying to wrap my head around it because sometimes with me, I need the words and the narrative first, and then I can let myself sink into that feeling. Whereas some people need to feel it and then they can find the words. Like for me, sometimes it's the opposite. Anyway, all to say, they're coming to me. We're talking about this loss. We're talking about this grief. You don't have capacity to hold each other through this. I'm so sorry. And you're going to have to turn to other people because you're experiencing your grief in really different ways. This time, as much as we want co-regulation, as much as we want to be able to show up for one another, part of what that's going to look like is actually a focus on self-regulation and on going and developing closer ties in community and getting more community to be with you in this, because I lost a relationship, in my acute grief. Like I went through a terrible breakup, and what I understand now looking at it a couple of years later is the way in which when you're in acute grief, you have no extra for regulating another person. You have no extra to hold other people's feelings.
It reorganizes so much. And yeah, and sometimes that couple unit does not have enough containers for all of it. That's just reality.
There's so many little things. Like it's like weirdly, if you can get to a point of doing enough of your healing around it, like grief can be a gift that keeps giving.
I hear it. And I can see that in you, but I can see how that feels like a hard statement, or could feel like a hard statement for somebody else to hear as well in the midst of it.
Yeah, it feels bizarre. Like I almost feel out of my body saying it because I know that I have my days where it doesn't feel like a gift. I know that I have my days where I just want to read all the notes that I ever got from my people, or just I need to just hear from them or whatever it is. I have my days that are just really tough. Right now, I'm not in that moment. Right now, I'm okay. And so it is no different than I think the way we counsel people when they're in like the ebbs and flows of depression, right? Where it's like, if you have a better day, you enjoy it and you do what you can with that day. You make some hay while the sun shines, and you figure out how to bolster and make yourself resilient for those days that you don't have it.
Not that it's this constant gift, or not that anything's constant. Like, of course, how we do this work, but in those moments you can appreciate, and you just happen to be in that moment right now as we're speaking.
Yeah, lucky you got me on a good day.
I feel like I could talk to you for like another hour. But if you were to take a piece of everything that you're sharing today, what you want somebody to walk away with, what could that be?
Gosh, I don't know. I feel like our conversation went in a really different direction than what I anticipated. And I was like, oh, we're going to talk about art and how like connecting with art is really
We
helped.
need to do another episode on art now.
We're going to have to. We will. But I guess you said this earlier, Alefyah, that so much of this is about balance. And a word that is inescapable for me, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, the word that always comes up is duality and holding both and being with both parts and just acknowledging that there is very little in our world, in the complicated world that we live in, that feels black and white anymore. So much of everything lives somewhere in a grayscale. For me, translating that into therapy or whomever is listening to this, it just means about like, hey, whatever I'm feeling, whatever you're feeling, it's not wrong. It's there for a reason. Can we be curious? Can we hold room that we have many parts and many things can be true at the same time? We don't have to just resource one part of ourselves. Like we can actually be there for our whole selves, and that it starts with us. That if we actually are committed to that self-discovery and the brave, vulnerable work of kind of uncovering our own demons and going there, the more we do that, the more permission we give ourselves to do that, the more we can spirit and guide other people as they cultivate the courage to go there themselves.
Sweet. Oh, that's beautifully said. Very beautiful. And it's kind of coming back to that integration piece you talked about. We're all such rich, complex people. And the more we can touch on the different parts of ourselves, we can show up for the other parts of everybody else. One thing that I'm walking away from today is, I always see you as just the happy and like the joy kind of bubbles out of you. You're artist, your humor, you're like one of the funniest people I know. So, and I always see that. I think everybody sees that in you, but I think your story today, even though I've known that you have grieved and I know your story of grief, I'm seeing your joy in a different way, in a richness today.
Thank you.
With different eyes that I haven't before. And I just appreciate that. I can see that it's holding on to the other, and it's holding on to this appreciation and this like lust for life that you've gotten from this grief, and it's kind of carrying with it all your ancestors and stuff too. So I appreciate getting to see that.
Thank you so much for saying that. That means a lot. And I feel so witnessed and held by you when people know more about, hey, like part of this is my spirit, and part of this is that I'm a little fairy and I'm supposed to sprinkle fairy dust everywhere. Like there is an element of that to just my persona, but it matters to me that the people who I love and who love me know, right? It's a choice. I've made a choice. And maybe because I couldn't choose otherwise, like I wouldn't choose otherwise, I refused to, but that I hit that point and I just said, I don't want to live this. I want to find the joy, as hard as it is.
Yeah, there's so much power and resistance and resilience to joy. And it's when we're just sitting in the grief, we're not really appreciating the life that we're grieving.
Yeah, you have to find the collateral beauty in everything, Alefyah. Oh, well, thank you so
talking
much.
to you. I think we're going to have to do another episode because we have 30 other topics to focus on.
I know.
But great seeing you. Oh, do you want to give just where can people find you? Anything else you want to give attention to? Any resources?
Yeah, I think there are 2 books I do just want to name for people as guiding through grief. One I referenced earlier, it's Frances Weller's The Wild Edge of Sorrow, and Megan Devine's It's Okay That You're Not Okay. If there's anyone listening to this who's in a grief process, those 2 books really shepherded me through it, and I recommend them highly. In terms of where to find me, gosh, I should know my website. I don't know. It's one of these weird ones through.
Well, we'll put it in the show notes. It's okay. So I will include those 2 books, and I'll include where to find her as well.
But yeah, I'm based here in New Orleans and doing virtual and in-person therapy for folks in Louisiana. And, stay tuned. My hope is that I'm also going to be doing some art workshops in this next year too.
Where can they see your art? Is your art still up?
It's not up right now, but maybe this will be the kick in the pants I need to get the art Instagram live.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned indeed. Yeah. Thank you, Alefyah. Thank you for the gift of this podcast and what you're trying to do and spread these messages that help us understand therapy more deeply, how much care and intention goes behind it, but also all these different kaleidoscopic pieces of it. It's so important.
Thank you. Love you.
I'd love to.
Join the movement and keep the conversation going at deconstructingtherapy.com. And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Deconstructing Therapy. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you are able to and would like to help sustain the podcast, you can find us at buymeacoffee.com/deconstructingtherapy to show your support. Thank you for listening.